Right now, the internet is exploding over a video that nobody expected to see. A moment so intense, so emotional, and so chaotic that even longtime fans of the Harris family say they've never seen anything like it before. In the viral clip, legendary rapper T.I. completely loses his composure and grabs his own son King Harris by the collar during a heated confrontation that instantly shocked social media. But this wasn't just a normal argument between a father and his son. This wasn't celebrity drama, and it definitely wasn't a staged moment for views. According to people close to the situation, something happened behind the scenes that pushed T.I. to a breaking point that nobody had ever seen before. And the most shocking part? The viral clip that everyone is arguing about is only a tiny piece of the story. What actually led up to that moment, and what happened immediately after, paints a much darker picture than anyone realized at first. Because insiders are now claiming that something King said publicly may have put his entire family in danger. Real danger. The kind that doesn't stay on the internet. And once you hear what allegedly happened before that camera started recording, you'll understand exactly why everything spiraled out of control. Long before the internet watched T, I grab his son by the collar in that now viral clip. Tension had already been building inside the Harris household for years. What the public saw in those few seconds wasn't just anger. It was the explosion of a situation that had been simmering for a very long time. Anyone who has followed the family knows that King Harris has always been the most unpredictable member of the Harris kids. Growing up in the spotlight, he was known for being funny, energetic, and outspoken. On reality TV and social media, he often came across as the loud, charismatic kid who loved attention. But as he got older, that playful personality slowly started turning into something far more complicated. Instead of just joking around online, King began building a reputation for getting into arguments, clashing with strangers on social media, and constantly talking about street life. For many fans, the behavior felt confusing. After all, King grew up surrounded by wealth, fame, and opportunity. His father, T.I., is one of the most respected figures in hip-hop. His mother, Tameka, Tiny Harris, is a music industry veteran. The family lived comfortably, far away from the kind of environment King sometimes claimed to represent online. That contrast started raising eyebrows. Every few months, a new clip would go viral showing King arguing with people in public, getting into confrontations, or boasting about being outside. The internet treated it like entertainment, but people close to the family say the situation wasn't funny behind closed doors. According to insiders, T.I. had been trying for years to guide his son in a different direction. He pushed King toward music. He tried involving him in business opportunities. He encouraged him to focus on building a real career instead of chasing attention online. But the more guidance King received, the more he seemed determined to prove something else to the world. Friends of the family say that King wanted respect, not the kind that comes from being the son of a famous rapper, but the kind that comes from being feared or taken seriously in the streets. And that mindset slowly created a dangerous pattern. Clips of King arguing with strangers started circulating across platforms like Instagram and TikTok. In some of those videos, he appeared to be bragging about conflicts or talking aggressively toward people he didn't even know. To fans watching from the outside, it looked like another example of celebrity kids acting wild online. But inside the Harris household, the situation reportedly felt very different. Family friends claimed T.I. repeatedly warned his son about the dangers of talking too much on the internet. He explained that the real world doesn't operate the same way as social media. On the internet, people argue, insult each other, and move on. But in real life, certain names, certain situations, and certain conversations can lead to consequences that don't disappear after a comment section closes. For a while, it seemed like King might finally start listening. He began focusing more on music and occasionally posting studio sessions. Fans thought the phase might be over. But then something changed again. Over the last several months, King's online behavior reportedly became even more aggressive. He started speaking about situations that insiders claim were far bigger than he understood. People close to the family say he began referencing individuals and conflicts connected to Atlanta's underground scene. Situations involving people who are not celebrities, not influencers, and not interested in internet attention. To someone unfamiliar with that world, it might have sounded like typical online bravado, but to people who recognize the names being mentioned, it was extremely reckless. According to one source close to the situation, T.I. had already confronted King privately about it weeks before the viral incident happened. The conversation reportedly got heated. T.I. allegedly warned his son that speaking on certain people publicly could attract attention from individuals who don't treat online comments like jokes. But King didn't see it the same way. In his mind, he was defending his reputation. He believed people were disrespecting him online, and he felt the need to respond. And that's where the situation began spiraling. One night, during a conversation that was supposedly meant to stay private, King started talking about a recent online argument he had been involved in. At first, the discussion sounded like another typical internet disagreement. But then the details started getting more serious. According to insiders, King had allegedly mentioned specific individuals during a live stream conversation earlier that day. Not only that, he spoke about them in a way that sounded confrontational. For most people watching online, it probably looked like another celebrity's son trying to sound tough. But for the people who understood who he was talking about, the situation suddenly became very real. And then something happened that reportedly changed everything. Sources claim that someone contacted the Harris household directly. It wasn't a fan. It wasn't a blogger. It was someone connected to the people King had mentioned publicly. The message was simple, but extremely serious. King needed to stop talking before the situation escalated further. When T.I. heard about that warning, insiders say his reaction was immediate. He was furious, but not just angry. He was scared. Because from his perspective, his son wasn't just embarrassing himself anymore. He was potentially pulling the entire family into a conflict they had nothing to do with. And that's where the story takes a darker turn. When T.I. confronted King about the situation inside the house, the conversation reportedly started calmly. The rapper asked his son to explain exactly what he had said online. King, however, didn't appear worried. In fact, according to people who were present, he brushed it off like it was no big deal. He insisted that nobody was actually going to do anything. He claimed the threats were just people talking tough online. But the more King dismissed the situation, the more frustrated his father became. To T.I., this wasn't about ego or pride. It was about safety. Because what King didn't seem to understand was that the internet might treat these situations like entertainment, but real people were now paying attention. And then the moment happened that changed everything. During the argument, King allegedly said something that made the entire room go silent. A sentence that shocked everyone present. A sentence that suggested he had already told certain people they could come confront him if they wanted to. Right there. At the house. And the second I heard those words, everything inside him snapped. Because at that moment, it wasn't just about King anymore. It was about everyone living under that roof. And the viral video the internet keeps replaying started seconds later. The moment those words left King Harris's mouth, the entire room went silent. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. It was the kind of silence that happens when everyone suddenly realizes something serious has just been said. Standing across from him was his father, T.I., and according to people who were there, the look on his face instantly changed. At first, he didn't yell. He didn't explode. He just stared at his son like he was trying to make sure he had heard correctly. "You told them what?" he reportedly asked, his voice low and controlled. King shrugged. To him, it still didn't feel like a big deal. He repeated what he said earlier, explaining that during the online argument, he told the people talking trash that if they had a problem, they could come talk about it in person. Then, he said the part that made everyone in the room freeze. He told them they already knew where the house was. The reaction was immediate. Several people in the room gasped. Someone in the background reportedly whispered, "Why would you say that?" But King just laughed it off. From his perspective, he was simply proving he wasn't afraid. He believed he was showing confidence, proving that he wouldn't run from anyone. What he didn't realize was that he had just crossed a line that no one in the family ever wanted crossed. Because this wasn't just a random address. This was the home where multiple family members lived. Younger siblings, relatives, and people who had nothing to do with whatever argument was happening online. To T.I., that changed everything. Sources say his voice dropped into a tone that everyone in the room immediately recognized. Not anger yet, something more controlled and dangerous. "You told strangers where your family sleeps?" he asked. King tried to brush it off again. "Dad, chill. It ain't that serious," he reportedly replied. But for T.I., it was very serious. For years, he had tried to keep the chaos of the internet away from his family's private life. No matter what drama happened publicly, the home was supposed to remain off-limits. And now, his own son had just invited potential conflict straight to the front door. According to witnesses, that was the exact moment things escalated. "I stepped forward quickly, his frustration finally boiling over. He grabbed King by the collar and pushed him backward while shouting words that were partially drowned out by the commotion in the room. That was the moment captured in the now viral video. To the internet, it looked like a sudden burst of violence. But the people who were there say it was something else entirely. It was a father reacting to the idea that his family might have just been exposed to real danger. As the confrontation happened, voices started rising around them. Some people rushed forward, trying to separate the two. Others shouted for someone to turn the camera off. In the background, Tamika "Tiny" Harris could reportedly be heard telling them to stop before things got worse. But the tension in that room had already exploded. Even as his father held him by the collar, King reportedly continued arguing back. Instead of apologizing or backing down, he insisted that nobody was actually going to do anything. He repeated that the people online were just talking. "They ain't going to do nothing," he allegedly said. That sentence made the situation even worse. Because from T's perspective, it showed that his son still didn't understand what he had done. For someone who had spent decades in the music industry and seen the darker sides of fame and street politics, the idea of casually challenging people online was never something to take lightly. And now, King had not only done that, but also tied the family home into the situation. Eventually, the people in the room managed to separate them. The confrontation cooled down slightly, but the tension didn't disappear. King stormed off toward another part of the house, clearly still frustrated. I remained behind, pacing and talking with the adults in the room about what had just happened. According to insiders, the conversation quickly shifted from anger to concern. Everyone started asking the same question. Who exactly had King been arguing with? Because depending on the answer, the situation could either be nothing or something far more serious. At first, they assumed it was just another random internet argument. But within the next few hours, something happened that changed the entire tone of the night. Messages started appearing online. Some of them were vague comments from accounts nobody recognized. Others were more direct, warning King to stop talking about things he didn't understand. Most people might have ignored messages like that. But then one message appeared that caught everyone's attention. It didn't mention the family. It didn't threaten the house. Instead, it said something much more unsettling. "We ain't worried about your family. We worried about you." That sentence quickly started circulating across social media. People began screenshotting it, reposting it, and speculating about who might have sent it. Suddenly, what started as a family argument inside a house had turned into a much bigger conversation across the internet. Fans began debating whether King had actually gotten himself into a situation he couldn't handle. Others defended him, claiming the threats were probably just trolls trying to scare him. But inside the Harris household, the mood had completely shifted. According to sources, T.I. wasn't treating the situation like internet drama anymore. He was treating it like a potential security issue. Phones were ringing. Conversations were happening behind closed doors. Members of the household were reportedly told to stay inside while the situation was figured out. Meanwhile, King still didn't seem fully convinced anything serious was happening. Later that same night, he reportedly went live on Instagram again. And instead of calming the situation down, he made it worse. Because during that live stream, King doubled down on everything he had already said. He told viewers he wasn't scared of anybody. He insisted that nobody was going to do anything to him or his family. And then he repeated the exact phrase that had started the entire confrontation earlier. "If they got a problem, they know where I'm at." The comment section exploded instantly. Viewers begged him to stop talking. Some people warned him he was only making things worse. But before the live stream could continue any further, something unexpected happened. Someone off camera suddenly grabbed the phone out of his hand. Viewers heard shouting, and then the live stream ended abruptly. Within minutes, the clip started spreading across the internet. And while fans argued about what it meant, something else was already happening behind the scenes. Because according to insiders, by that point, I had just received a message that made the situation even more serious. A message that suggested someone very close to King might have played a role in everything that had just happened. The moment that message reached the entire situation shifted from chaotic to calculated. Up until that point, the night had felt like a family crisis, an argument that spiraled out of control and spilled onto the internet. But now it was turning into something far more complicated. Because the message didn't come from a stranger. It came from someone who claimed to know exactly how the situation had started. According to insiders, the message suggested that King Harris hadn't gotten himself into trouble completely on his own. Instead, someone in his own circle may have been pushing him to act reckless online. At first, that idea sounded ridiculous. King had always been outspoken. He didn't need anyone encouraging him to argue with people online. But the more details surfaced, the more suspicious the situation started to look. For months, there had been a friend constantly around King. Someone who appeared in the background of videos, someone who often recorded him during live streams, someone who hyped him up whenever he spoke about conflicts online. That friend had always seemed loyal. But now insiders were saying something very different. According to the source, that same person had been quietly recording multiple conversations King had over the past few weeks. Not just regular videos for social media, private moments too. Moments where King talked about arguments, names, and situations that should never have been shared publicly. And somehow those recordings had started reaching the wrong people. When heard that possibility, the pieces started falling into place. The live stream arguments, the sudden escalation online, the threats appearing so quickly afterward. It all started to look less like coincidence and more like manipulation. Someone might have been feeding King information, encouraging him to respond publicly, and secretly recording everything at the same time. Why would anyone do that? According to the insider, the answer might have been surprisingly simple. Clout. King had been going viral repeatedly over the past few months. Every time he argued with someone online or posted a controversial video, the clips spread everywhere. Blogs reposted them, reaction channels discussed them, and millions of people watched. In the world of internet attention, controversy can become currency. And the source claimed someone close to King might have wanted a piece of that attention. The theory was that the friend recording those moments had been leaking certain clips to outside pages. Clips that made King look reckless, loud, and constantly surrounded by drama. The more chaotic the situation became, the more views those videos received. But the person behind the recordings allegedly made one critical mistake. They underestimated how serious the situation could become once real people got involved. According to the insider, one of the clips or conversations that had been leaked eventually reached individuals connected to the very people King had mentioned online. That's when the threats began. And the moment the situation started turning dangerous, the friend who had been recording everything reportedly disappeared. Their phones stopped answering calls. Their social media accounts went quiet. They stopped showing up around King completely. To that disappearance raised even more questions. Because if the friend had nothing to do with the situation, why vanish the moment things became serious? Sources claim I started making calls immediately, trying to figure out exactly who had been leaking information and where those recordings had gone. Meanwhile, The internet continued doing what it always does, speculating. Clips from the earlier confrontation kept circulating on platforms like TikTok and Instagram. Millions of viewers debated whether the situation was real danger or just exaggerated online drama. But inside the Harris household, the mood had shifted completely. For the first time that night, King reportedly started realizing that things might actually be serious. It happened after the live stream ended, after the phone was taken out of his hand, after he saw the reactions spreading across social media. According to one witness, King walked into the living room and sat down quietly for several minutes without saying anything. The same person who had been arguing confidently online just hours earlier suddenly looked completely different. He started asking questions. Who were the people sending those messages? Were they actually serious? Could someone really show up at the house? That's when I sat down across from his son again. This time, there was no shouting, no confrontation, just a long, heavy silence between them. Then, I said something that reportedly changed King's entire attitude. You don't understand the weight of the name you carry. The sentence wasn't about fame. It wasn't about music. It was about the reality that being connected to a well-known family sometimes attracts the wrong kind of attention. King listened quietly as his father explained something he had been trying to teach him for years. The internet isn't real life. Online arguments might feel like entertainment, but the people on the other side of the screen can be very real. Some of them take disrespect seriously, and some situations can spiral far beyond social media. For the first time that night, King reportedly stopped arguing. Instead, he admitted something that surprised everyone in the room. He said he thought the people messaging him were just internet trolls, people pretending to be tough online. He never imagined the situation could reach this point, and that realization hit him hard. According to The Insider, that's when King finally broke down emotionally. The confidence he had shown online earlier was gone. The bravado disappeared, replaced by the realization that he might have created a situation far bigger than he expected. Meanwhile, the search for the missing friend continued. Because if someone had truly been leaking recordings and encouraging the chaos, they might have been responsible for turning a simple online argument into something much more dangerous. Late that night, one more piece of information reportedly reached the family. Someone had seen the missing friend earlier in the evening. Not alone. They were allegedly meeting with someone connected to a popular online personality who had been mocking King publicly in recent weeks. If that information turned out to be true, it would suggest something even more disturbing: that the entire situation may have started as an attempt to embarrass King online. But once real-world consequences entered the picture, the people responsible disappeared and left him to deal with the fallout alone. And if that theory was correct, then the biggest problem for the Harris family might not be the strangers sending threats online. It might be discovering who inside King's own circle had been secretly turning his worst moments into entertainment for the internet. If there's one thing this entire situation proves, it's how fast things can spiral when private moments collide with the internet. What started as an argument inside the home of I quickly turned into a viral story involving family tension, online pressure, and the harsh reality of how quickly words can spread once they hit social media. For King Harris, this moment may end up being a major turning point. Sometimes situations like this force people to step back, rethink their circle, and understand that the internet isn't always cheering you on for the right reasons. The same platforms that hype you up can also watch you fall. But now the question shifts to you. Do you think this situation was blown out of proportion by the internet? Or do you believe it was a serious wake-up call for King and everyone around him? And what about the alleged betrayal inside his circle? If someone really was recording and leaking moments for clout, that raises a whole new conversation about trust and loyalty. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because I'm genuinely curious what you think about this entire situation. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more deep dives into stories like this, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next update. And turn on notifications because if any new information comes out about the Harris family or this situation, you already know we'll be covering it right here.